A company once controlled 65% of an entire American market. Not half, not the biggest player, 65%. Today, most people don't even know it existed. That level of dominance is almost unheard of. McDonald's never controlled 65% of burgers. Starbucks never controlled 65% of coffee. Yet this company did, and it wasn't tech. It wasn't oil. It wasn't banking. It was fast food. At its peak, it generated nearly $500 million in annual sales. It operated almost 1,500 locations across the country. And it shaped how Americans ate an entire category of food. Then it collapsed, not overnight, not from a single scandal, but from a decision that looked brilliant at first, and fatal in the long run. This is the story of that decision. The bet that built an empire. The story begins in 1969 in Lexington, Kentucky. Fast food was exploding. Burger chains were everywhere. Most looked identical. That's when Jim Patterson made a different bet. Instead of burgers, he chose fish. Specifically, fried fish, inspired by New England-style fish and chips, brought inland to places far from the ocean. It sounds obvious now. But at the time, it was radical. He wasn't trying to compete inside a crowded category. He was creating a new one. Middle America didn't have a seafood fast food option, so he built it. That decision gave Long John Silver's something priceless: clarity. Customers immediately understood what it was, and just as importantly, what it wasn't. In business, that kind of clarity can be unstoppable. Dominance on a scale that shouldn't exist. The growth was relentless. Franchises spread rapidly. Highways. Suburbs, small towns. By the 1980s, Long John Silver's had crossed 1,000 locations nationwide. But the most shocking number came later. At its peak, the chain controlled 65% of all out-of-home seafood consumption in the United States. Think about that. If Americans ordered seafood from a restaurant, 2 out of 3 times, it came from Long John Silver's. This kind of dominance almost never happens in restaurants. Food is fragmented. Tastes vary. Competition is constant. You see market control like this in software or pharmaceuticals, not fast food. And it all came from one thing: focus. The power and danger of focus. Long John Silver's didn't win by doing more. It won by doing less. It didn't chase trends. It didn't overload the menu. It didn't try to please everyone. It was the fish place. Crispy batter. Simple sides. Predictable experience. Customers knew exactly what they were getting. That focus built trust. And trust built scale. But focus has a hidden downside. When something works for a long time, it starts to feel permanent. Leaders stop asking, "What if this changes?" They assume the future will look like the past, and that assumption is dangerous. Because the same focus that builds an empire can become a cage when the world shifts. Pressure from both sides. By the late 1980s, cracks began to form. Not collapse, pressure. From the top, casual dining seafood chains offered sit-down experiences and higher-end meals. From the bottom, grocery stores introduced frozen fish sticks and microwavable seafood dinners. Long John Silver's was stuck in the middle, still popular, still profitable, but no longer untouchable. Inside the company, a quiet fear emerged. What if the growth was slowing? What if competitors were catching up? Instead of doubling down on what made them dominant, leadership began searching for protection, and this is where the story changes. Because fear doesn't usually lead to bold clarity. It leads to reaction. Corporate panic is subtle. It doesn't look like chaos. It looks like meetings, consultants, spreadsheets. Words like diversification start appearing. So do phrases like unlocking value and future-proofing. Long John Silver's went through ownership changes and financial restructuring. Most notably, the company took on significant debt through a leveraged buyout. At the time, this was fashionable, common, even praised. But debt changes how a company thinks. It reduces flexibility. It raises the cost of mistakes. And it forces short-term decisions when long-term thinking is needed most. The business was about to face forces far bigger than branding or menu tweaks. And debt ensured it would face them with its hands tied. A cultural shift. No menu could fix. As the company carried more debt, American eating habits began to change, slowly but unmistakably. Health became a mainstream concern. Fried food gained a negative reputation. Consumers started reading labels. This was a problem. Long John Silver's entire identity was built on deep-fried fish. So the brand tried to adapt. Healthier items appeared. Grilled options, lighter meals. But adaptation came at a cost. The core customers didn't want a healthier Long John Silver's. And health-conscious consumers didn't trust the brand anyway. The company lost clarity. Too fried for some. Not indulgent enough for others. This is one of the most dangerous places a brand can land. The identity crisis. At this point, the company faced an impossible choice. Stay true to its original identity and risk falling out of favor. Or pivot aggressively and risk becoming unrecognizable. Neither option was safe, but what made it worse was confusion. Customers no longer knew what Long John Silver's stood for. Was it indulgent fast food? Was it trying to be healthy? Was it a nostalgia brand? Brands survive on meaning. When meaning blurs, loyalty fades. This isn't just a corporate problem. It happens to careers, to creators, to entire industries. Comment below. If you were running Long John Silver's at this point, would you stay loyal to fried fish or attempt a full reinvention? While seafood chains were declining, another category was exploding. Chicken. Chick-fil-a scaled nationally. Raising Cane's grew from a few hundred locations to over 800. Wing-focused chains multiplied. This wasn't about taste alone. Something structural was happening. Chicken-based fast food became faster, cheaper, and easier to scale. Seafood-based fast food did not. The industry was shifting beneath everyone's feet. And Long John Silver's was on the wrong side of that shift. If you were leading the company in the 1990s, what would you have done differently? Double down on fish or pivot toward chicken? Comment below. This is the part few people talk about. Fast food is a math business. Margins matter more than marketing. Over time, chicken became dramatically cheaper to produce. Industrial farming. Optimized supply chains. Mass efficiency. Fish moved in the opposite direction. Overfishing. Stricter regulations. Limited supply. The result? A fish-based fast food meal costs 3 to 4 times more to produce than a comparable chicken meal. That single fact breaks the model. You can't price competitively. You can't protect margins. You can't scale efficiently. No strategy can overcome broken economics. At that point, decline isn't a management failure. It's a structural one. The original issue. Now return to the beginning. That decision in 1969, betting on fish. At the time, it was brilliant. It created differentiation. It built dominance. But some competitive advantages have expiration dates you can't see. Jim Patterson couldn't have known fish would become economically unviable for fast food. He couldn't predict how cheap chicken would become. He made the right decision with the information he had. The tragedy isn't poor judgment. It's that the world changed in a way that made the original success unsustainable. The very thing that built the empire eventually made it fragile. What do you think mattered most in Long John Silver's decline? Debt, health trends, or the economics of fish itself? Because the real risk isn't failure. It's not seeing the shift until it's too late.